with a warning this week from FBI Director Chris Wray. Take a look.
We're concerned about the potential for violence at multiple protests and rallies planned here in D.C. and at state capitol buildings around the country in the days to come that could bring armed individuals within close proximity to government buildings and officials.
Governor, do you have intelligence about rallies like that this week in Arkansas, and have you beefed up security to protect your state capital in Little Rock?
Well, thank you, Chris. And the answer is yes. We have both intelligence that there's going to be activity around our capital and capitals across the country. Much of it comes from the FBI, but our own intelligence. And we're taking necessary precautions to make sure that we protect our capital and our citizens. You want to be over-prepared versus under-prepared, because we never want to see a repeat of what we saw on January 6th in our nation's capital.
What are you specifically being told about the threat level of the rallies in your state?
It's not to the level that I'm bringing out the National Guard. We are using civilian law enforcement. We have response teams there. We'll have a beefed up presence at the Capitol for Tuesday. We actually have a rally for today, and we don't have any specific intelligence that there's going to be violence associated with those rallies, but we want to be extra precautious. Every state has to look at their own intelligence matrix and make those kind of judgments. I know some governors have beefed up even more than that, but I think the deterrent value of what we've seen over the last couple of days has had an impact and hopefully has diminished that threat level.
An Arkansan named Richard Barnett was arrested for violent entry to the Capitol. We have a picture of him up on the screen. On January 6th, he's the man, picture on the left, who broke into Speaker Pelosi's office, posed for pictures, and stole her mail. His mugshot is on the right. Governor, is there an element in your state that you believe poses a threat to, whether it's on the federal level or the state level, poses a threat to our government?
Well, I think there is a historic threat from militia groups, from those that I dealt with in the 1980s when I was United States Attorney, of neo-Nazi, white supremacist, terrorist organizations. That's been diminished, but I would say most states have some element of that threat. It exists in Arkansas as well. And let me just say that it is critical that those, including the two that's been arrested from Arkansas, meet the full measure of law.
In the 80s?
That is unacceptable conduct, and that serves in and of itself as a deterrent.
Yeah, we should point out there's another Arkansan who's been arrested. He's the fellow who was seen banging, hitting at police officers with an American flag. Back on November 7th, just 4 days after our presidential election, you issued this statement. While we await the outcome of various court challenges, it is important that we recognize the likelihood that former Vice President Biden and Senator Harris have won over 270 electoral votes. Governor, in spreading stories over these last 2 months about a rigged election, in the words he said to that crowd of thousands of people on the Mall on January 6th, what responsibility do you think President Trump bears for the attack on the U.S. Capitol?
Well, he asked all the people to come to Washington for the rally, and then he used a very aggressive language in the rally itself, and he misled people and his followers as to what happened during the election, that it was stolen, and that our checks and balances are not working. And while I do believe there can be an effective review always to make sure our systems of elections work well, the Electoral College is what is critical to our nation. I supported that, and his challenge to that was wrong and did not serve our nation well, and it was demonstrated on January 6th.
So you had 3 terms in Congress, and in fact, you served as an impeachment manager for the House in the Clinton impeachment in the late 90s. If you were in Congress now, would you have voted for the Trump impeachment? It certainly was much more consequential than the case against Bill Clinton.
Very serious allegations. The impeachment is something that is both a legal equation, but it's also a political equation. And I did not believe that with the remaining weeks that were left in President Trump's term, that served our country well to go through the House impeachment. Now that the House has impeached President Trump, either the House can hold the articles of impeachment there, but once they send them over to the Senate trial is triggered, and there's no option about that. And so we're going to go through a very challenging time. And having gone through the impeachment before, I do think it's important that the Senate hear both the legal arguments about that, about what happened, but also the facts, and make a judgment. And I think at this point, the outcome is unpredictable.
After the riot in the U.S. Capitol, you had this to say about President Trump: it's going to diminish that cult of personality, and I think it will help bring our party back to policy and conservatism. Which raises the question, Governor, where does the Republican Party, the National Republican Party, go from here, and how much clout do you think Donald Trump will have as the next president in the GOP?
Well, it's a great question. And first of all, the GOP had a very successful election. Yes, we did not win the presidency, but at every other level, we had success and gained seats. So conservatism and the Republican Party is alive and well. Right now, we are fractured as a result of President Trump and how he has handled it, the post-election results, and challenged the Electoral College, and that has some division. But our party will come back together. We're going to have a tough 6 months or more coming up. We're going to have a lot of soul searching that's going to be done, and it's going to be a fair debate as the direction of the party, both in terms of Trump's influence over it, but it's also going to be about policy and trade and foreign policy and Biden's agenda. So I welcome that policy debate, and I think we ought to get back to the conservative principles that have made our party the majority party, and hopefully it will move away from that personality-driven that's led us to where we are right now under President Trump.
Finally, Governor, I want to switch subjects on you. Arkansas has given out 46% of the COVID vaccine doses that you have gotten so far. I want to ask you, what do you think of the Trump plan as it has worked so far for getting the vaccine into people's arms? What was your reaction when you found out that the Trump administration, in fact, has no reserve supply of the vaccine, despite what had been promised to you? And briefly, to answer all of these, what do you think of the Biden vaccine plan as you've heard it so far?
Well, we want to get the vaccines out. We were disappointed that there wasn't going to be an accelerated delivery of vaccines to our state, and we were not counting on that in our current delivery system, but we wanted more because right now we're going into teachers, those age 70 and over, and we don't have the supply to get them all vaccinated. Hopefully that will increase with our great pharmaceutical industry and their manufacturing capacity, but it's got to increase. In terms of President-elect Biden's plan, I've met with their transition team a couple of times on this, and they're looking for ways to accelerate that, but the bottom line is they're dependent upon our manufacturing capacity, and if we can't beef that up, then it's going to be a tough couple of months in trying to get a limited supply out to everyone that's in need. We're doing everything we can to accelerate the delivery of the vaccines to our population. So I expect our current percent of about 40% will go up. We're getting our systems in better place. There's a greater acceptance of that, and it's going well. We just need more supply to get it into arms quicker.
Governor, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be with you today.